For many months, Kamen Rider Decade was rumored to be making a new powered-up appearance in Kamen Rider Gotchard, and it was speculated how Tsukasa would play into the lore of the show and gain a new form, but eventually it all turned out to be a brand new character with his own side special, which is pretty interesting. Hello everyone, it's Thomas Jujubee, and it's time to finally talk about the Kamen Rider Gotchard vs Kamen Rider Legend special. This is a pretty interesting piece of side content in my opinion, since as I mentioned, we kinda got months upon months of speculation with this. I've made a few videos prior to this speculating on what this would be about, and now it's finally here and I'm here to talk about it. So be sure to let me know your own opinions on the special, or even just Legend himself down in the comment section, and also let me know if you bought some of his toys that will be important later. Going into this, I was actually quite excited. As I mentioned, months of rumors. It was satisfying to finally have something concrete about what this was going to be. I love the look of Legend, and I also thought it was really fun that Toei just randomly pulled a 2 Kaiser with Decade, where a few years ago we got a golden upgraded version of the main character from a famous Sentai anniversary that could turn into past characters. Now we have a golden upgraded version of the main character from a famous Rider anniversary that could turn into past characters. I really hope Toei is cooking up some kind of Legend versus 2 Kaiser special, because like, how are you going to do the same thing for the other half of this somewhat famous rivalry between the two franchises and not have them cross over? It's right there on the table. You can give them new toys. Like, you're printing money with that concept. Anyways, in regards to the actual special itself, well, it's not bad. It starts off fun enough. I enjoyed the gag with Hotaro going to feed Kajiki before he just randomly gets whisked off to another dimension and feeds that dimension's Kajiki. Then we get tons of exposition and jump right into the fights, and then all the forms and toys and blah blah blah. It's just kind of breakneck after that. So the exposition is all about the villains, and they are like the most generic bad guy group ever. Like, they're just out to take over the world, I think. It's just kind of weird because they are reusing almost the entirety of Gio's aesthetics. On the villain faction side, we get the return of the Kashins, we get the return of the Daimajins, which were barely in the show itself, so it's kind of weird they're back here. And then we get the return of the Kamen Rider, who's no one can say his name right, in a 2023 spinoff. Just a random Gio movie exclusive rider is the main bad guy of this 2023 spinoff. And also there's a funny little meta joke there where Kamen Rider Storius is playing this new version of the rider, and he's fighting alongside Kashins, which were repainted into his Kamen Rider Storius suit. So that's kind of funny. I just wonder why they did all this Gio homaging, but just made a whole new villain faction instead of trying to tie it into Gio in some way. The main villain here is just called Boss because he's the main boss. Maybe that's supposed to be a joke, but it wasn't funny to me. It was kind of boring. Maybe they could have been just like an alternate dimension Oma Gio. To be fair, this isn't really a story about the villains, so it's not like I can really get too upset about the lack of a villain presence. This is of course meant to be the introduction of Ho-Oh Kaguya Quartz, Kamen Rider Legend himself, and man, what a character he is. I mean, his introduction is getting out of a hot tub filled with different kinds of jewels. Surely that's not sanitary, right? Like, that's not actually cleaning anything. Maybe it's on top of water, it's just a really crystally bubble bath. Anyways, I had a lot of fun with Mr. Quartz in this special. Like the original Decade, he's just kind of an asshole, but now he's like a rich asshole, and you get it because he's like capable, so it's not like he's an asshole and he's losing battles. He's an asshole and he can back it up. And it's just kind of fun to see Hotaro, since he's always so friendly, so happy, and very nice to people, and that's something I like about him in the original season. The original season, it's still airing. In the main season, it's fun to see the two of them play off of each other, and in this case, I guess Hotaro even rubs off on Quartz a little bit and changes him, or not really, that's a weird thing, but I'll get to that. I do like how Quartz just kidnaps Hotaro because he doesn't think he's gorgeous as Gotchard. That's just kind of funny. The gorgeous catchphrase itself is just a ton of fun. It's really used every opportunity there is. Quartz will say it, Butler will say it, the belt says it a ton. It gives him this fun bit of characterization where even though he's a pompous asshole, he still has a good heart and wants to help people. It's just in a unique way. I think the weird thing is that that's just a part of him. Like, they kind of played up like Hotaro gave him this change of heart and that's why he comes to the battle, but it's really not. That's just how he is. He just shows up late to the battles, I guess. That's like what he says. So it's just kind of weird. They try to give him this character arc, but there's not really a character arc there. He's already a fine character. But I still do like that the inspiration inspiration for this desire to help people comes from Kamen Rider Decade himself, voiced by the original actor in a voice cameo. It is a single line of dialogue, but technically the original Decade is a part of Kamen Rider Gotchard after all those months of speculation and rumors. So I think that just makes this special kind of special. The way Quartz connects to the Gotchard season is quite interesting to me as well. As he kisses his ring to transform to make Hotaro more gorgeous, he loads him up with rings, and Hotaro leaves one of them behind after he disappears. And as we know, the whole gimmick of the Alchemy Academy is they have funny rings that do funny ring stuff. So I find it kind of fascinating how they keep that element here, but now they're just normal rings. I also find it fascinating how Legend's entire rider system is compatible with Gotchard's. I mean, from our perspective, they are the same toy line, but in universe, they're kind of meant to be two different rider systems, yet they are visually identical. They work in the Gotchard driver, but Kaguya says he has no desire to associate himself with Gotchard, so how did this happen? I also think it's funny that he says he went to visit all the past Kamen Riders, and they begged him to take their powers and put it into funny little cards, but he has Gotchard's card power, and obviously they've never met each other until now, so he's just lying. But I guess that's another interesting quirk to his personality. So Kaguya's fun but basic, and the villains are incredibly boring, and Hotaro's just here to sell a few toys, so the special is just kind of bland. Obviously it was made to advertise Legends toys, and it kind of feels like they didn't really put much thought into it beyond that, like the very basic outline of a story to sell the toys because they are a retail release for some reason, and yet it kind of got me. First off, I do have an unboxing of the Legend driver coming soon, so make sure you subscribe or check out my Patreon where you can see it probably right now or very, very soon. Secondly, yes, this is kind of like a lot of nostalgia bait, which is also kind of what makes the special feel bland. Like, here's Decade music in the background, here's the Decade driver, it's a weird thing, here's the Aurora curtain from Decade, again, a lot of the Geo elements I mentioned, and all the action sequences are like, hey, look at the old Kamen Riders, look at the new forms based on old Kamen Riders. Gotchard's Legend forms are very weird. Exceed Mighty is straight up bad, in my opinion. I also know the special's called Gotchard versus Legend, but it also kind of feels like, I don't know, it would have been nicer if it was just about Legend. It's a special about Legend, but after the Decade background music kicks in, we switch to Gotchard and we get his form change, and then Legend himself doesn't really fight that much. Like, he shoots a couple blasts in part 1, and then he just summons riders, or he's turning into other riders. Like, I know it's Legend fighting, so it's kind of a weird nitpick, but the Legend suit itself doesn't actually get a lot of action. It's just kind of weird to me. It would have been nicer if it was just Legend of part 1, and then part 2 he teams up with normal Steam Hopper, or just have him Legend change into like a bunch of riders, or summon more riders, you know, have Legend do more. Legend Kamen Riders aren't even that special anymore since they happen every year now. All of Heisei gets commemorated with the new gimmick every season, but with Legend, it's an entirely separate characters arsenal rather than just extensions of the main rider for the most part. And then Legend himself is like an amalgamation of all the previous anniversary riders. Obviously the suit's visuals come from Decade, and man, this suit is just so pretty. I really love it. The Decade design looks so good in gold, but I really love how it also has all these jagged bits to add some extra personality, and then the gemstones add a wonderful colorful flair to the whole thing. And then since the motorcycle gun summons riders, he's also kind of an upgraded DN, so one could argue he is their child. Then there's a lot of random geo quirks, like the big spinning thing in the background of the transformation, a little servant friend that announces transformations, and also I guess the way that Kaguya copies older catchphrases. But then he has his own unique elements, like how the past rider transformations and summons have a little extra gorgeousness to them to distinguish from the predecessors. And then there's small things like the DN finisher uses Kemi card projections instead of Decade cards, and then the final attack has his own unique Decade styled cards. Like, you can see his logo on final attack ride cards, which means that CSM Decade Driver 3.0 is on the way. He's certainly an homage, but he's an homage to so many different things that he feels unique at the same time. Obviously this was designed specifically to sell toys, it doesn't really do much beyond that, and as I said, there were definitely moments where I just felt nothing. But after watching this special, I really couldn't stop thinking about it. Like, it just got me with like the jangling keys moments. Looking past the bland storytelling, I enjoyed the fights, seeing the new and old suits, and Kaguya's pretty cool, so I look forward to his inevitable arrival in the Gotchard season because, once again, for some reason, all his toys are retail, and they probably want to keep keep promoting that because it's just going to be on shelves all year, just like I am going to keep promoting my upcoming unboxing of those toys. So once again, if you want to see that as soon as it comes out, check out my Patreon or subscribe to this channel. Let me know your thoughts on Gotchard versus Legend, and I hope to see you next time.